back to the FNZ 90 plus free podcast, where free football supporters take a look into the dressing room, chatting to former and, in tonight's case, current professional footballers about their experiences on and off the pitch. I'm your host, Ashley Symonds. You may be joining us for the first time tonight. Make sure you watch or listen to our previous episodes available on YouTube, Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And if you are back again, make sure you give us that much needed 5-star rating. Hit that like button and subscribe where possible. Tonight, I'm joined by my esteemed colleagues, Tux and Becks. Tux, let's start with you tonight, mate. You've been working ever so hard to get those names in this week. Any update on Dele Adebola, mate? Have you found him?
We haven't got quite Dele yet, but working on it. Sent him a message, but to no avail just yet. So, we'll wait and see on that one.
All right then, Becks, I can see you're wearing another interesting shirt tonight, mate. Can you give us a bit of background surrounding it?
Yeah, it's a Ajax shirt from the late 80s with the famous man who does not like flying on the back, if you know who that is, and someone who our guest may have crossed paths with when he was a young lad as well.
Oh, there we go. Tonight we're joined by a current player who spent time with the Invincibles Academy at a younger age, experienced a Europa League Final campaign with the Cottagers and played for the world's first vegan football club. And all that, and he's only 27. It's Keanu Marsh-Brown. How you doing, mate?
How you doing, guys? Nice to meet you.
Good to hear. Keanu, as is the new show, you won't be familiar with the format, so I'll give you a quick rundown of how it works. Just imagine you're in a pub with three blokes and for some strange, unapparent reason, you need to impress us with your best football stories that you've got in the locker. I have no doubt in my mind you've got some big ones to share. So if that's okay, we'll get to it.
Tux, that's fun.
Take us away, mate.
Keanu, first and foremost, thanks for coming on the pod tonight.
No worries.
Just before we delve into your professional career, I just want you to take us back through to your childhood. So, obviously, where it all began with football, really. I just want you to take me back there. So, from obviously the age, whether you went to watch football games with your family, or just talk me through those sort of times in your very, very early sort of stage.
I think it all started when, obviously, my older brother used to play. So going to watch him play, he started off his career at Chelsea. So I remember going to watch him train when I was younger. He was in like the same youth team as like Leon Knight and a few other players that I can't remember at the time. So that's where I think I got my love for football. I always used to go and play with him and his friends, like for a kick around when I was younger. And then when I got to about the age of, I think it was 6, I went to my first football game. It was a QPR home game. That was the first stadium and football match I ever went to. And I think that's when I fell in love with football from there. I started going to a few training camps in my area, which is Middlesex at the time. So it was Brentford. They had a few camps on, so just going there with loads of kids and playing, enjoying it. And then I got picked up and scouted by Chelsea from the age of 7.
So was there a team that you supported when you was going to watch, either like maybe your brother, were you supporting Chelsea, or was there a team before that?
I think as a kid I've always supported Chelsea as I've grown up, but a lot of my household is like Arsenal. So I kind of got pushed to the back a bit, because back in the day like Arsenal was the team. But deep down I've always loved Chelsea, yeah.
Yeah, so obviously you mentioned Arsenal there. So as a young boy, obviously your family supported Arsenal. So then obviously going into the academy there, that must have been a bit of a highlight for you, really, a personal highlight, as well as your family. So, I mean, sort of take me through your younger days at Arsenal and what your memories were. Obviously, you played, training with some really first-class players, probably like the likes of Henry, Bergkamp, all that lot. So, I mean, just sort of take me through that era of your young career.
Well, I remember when I first went to Arsenal. First day we played a friendly game against a foreign team, and a few faces that are still playing now, like Jack Wilshere, Luke Ayling, Benik Afobe. It was all in the team at the time, and I've just jumped straight into a game. I think I was nervous as hell. I remember like in the change room before, walking out shaking, nervous as any kid would be. And then I ended up scoring a hat-trick in that game. Then the day after, I signed like a long-term contract there. My experience there was great. I learned a lot, like even like things now, just the way how to play football the right way. That's how you get taught from a young age. And my team at the time, we had a really, really strong team. Jack Wilshere, Frimpong, Luke Galen, Connor Henderson, Henry Lansbury was around there, Benny Kofobi. So we had a really good youth setup at the time. So I enjoyed it a lot, especially going over to the first team training ground, watching them train, and then being involved at an early age, and then obviously just seeing that surroundings, it only makes you want to get to the top.
Yeah. So obviously that career at Arsenal sort of came to an end prematurely, but was it your choice to kind of go? Did you just want to go and get first team football? What was the idea of kind of going from Arsenal to Fulham?
Well, I remember coming to the last year, my contract, or the last 6 months, and I think that's when everyone was getting offered like pro contracts.
Yeah.
At an early age. I remember having a meeting with my mum and dad with Liam Brady, and at the time, I was really small. I didn't really grow. I was probably about 5'5", maybe 5'4". I was tiny, and they couldn't see me physically handling going up to the next level and playing with bigger players. And at that time, the bigger players were like Sanchez Watt, J. Emmanuel Thomas, which were all big players. He put me next to them. I looked like a baby. So that was the conversation. He was like, look, I always remember the conversation. He was like, look, we don't think physically you're ready. Maybe you need to take that step out and go and develop and grow. But the door's always open for you back here. So that's when the decision came for me to leave. And then I think I could have gone back to Chelsea at the time. But I had a close family friend that was working down at Fulham. And he said, look, come here. You might like it. We know you could go back to Chelsea. Just give us a chance and see if you like it. So I went down there, had a couple training sessions. And then after that, I ended up signing a 5-year contract when I was about 15.
Doing my research, I found out is that you were part of the famous Fulham UEFA Cup run, coming up against big sides like Shakhtar Donetsk and Juventus. Unfortunately, not getting on the pitch, but what was the mood in the camp there? Fulham were very much the underdogs in that, and being such a young player, were you hungry to just get a couple of minutes under your belt against, the great Juventus side that was around at the time?
Yeah, of course. I think at that time the club went from the season before just managing to stay up in the Premier League, and then to the next season getting to the final of the Europa League. And I remember being a young player and going into a meeting and like saying, we got told it could be a good thing if the club goes down, because there'll be more of you getting a chance in the first team. Yeah. But then on the other hand, a lot of them were saying like, we want to be a Premier League club. You know what I mean? You want to have that status. So I remember like when the competition started and I first got called into the squad, well, there was a few injuries and I was like, oh, that's decent, obviously, but there's a few injuries. Maybe I'll get my chance. I kept performing well. Didn't know on the squad. The mood was, at the beginning, the players were just like, let's just see how this goes. As you said, there was the underdogs. They didn't expect to go as far as they did. And then after a few games in the competition, there's winning, confidence was high. And then I remember after like my personal performances, I got called into the squad when there wasn't any injuries. Some of the first team players got left out and I was there in front of them and I was like, wow, like, I'm doing well. And when I look back at that time now, I'm thinking, why didn't I get put on just for like 10 minutes, 20 minutes, just to show what I could do? I was itching, because I think at that time, it might sound silly, but I think at that time I was ready to play at that high level from what I was doing.
And you got no fear. Yeah, no fear at that age
definitely.
as well.
Definitely.
An opportunity to show up a Fabio Cannavaro is something you want on your resume, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was definitely. I remember training with the first team and making them look silly at some point, and they would lose their head and like kick off. But that's when I knew like I could easily play at this level. Like, I thought at a young age I was like, I'm ready to play at this level. But it's just obviously it's just given that chance. You just need a manager to have faith in young players and give them that chance.
Yeah, I look at your time there at Fulham, and you know there's been links to Manchester City and Spurs sort of before they are where they are now, being sort of two of the biggest sides in the Premier League. That led you on to leaving Fulham sort of at the end of your contract and dropping down a few levels. What was your sort of thinking there? Was it just to get some minutes? Obviously, you hadn't had a lot of first team action at all. Was it?
Yeah, I think
trying to get out there.
I went on loan to MK Dons and had a good loan spell there. Roy Hodgson was still the manager at the time, and he said, "Go on loan, get some like first team games, and then you'll come back and I'll throw you in at the end of the season." So that was the plan. I went on loan until January, and then Roy Hodgson ended up leaving and going to Liverpool. So I've come back to Fulham now, and I think Mark Hughes came in after him, which wasn't the best for a lot of young players because he's come into a job wanting to keep a job. So he wasn't really interested in putting any young players in the team or have them around at all at the time. So I was a bit in like a sticky situation. I still had like 2 more years or 3 more years left on my deal. So I said, look, I'm just going to see it out. I ended up staying on loan to MK Dons until the end of the season. I came back in that new pre-season, and we had another new manager. We had Martin Jol, which brought in loads of foreign players. So I was like, am I going to get given a chance? Like, what's going to happen? So I had a meeting with him. Obviously, the plus side, my older brother, he signed my older brother over in Holland for RKC in the Dutch Premier League. So kind of had that link with him. So I've had a conversation with him. He was like, look, I'm going to give you a chance. You just got to give me time. Obviously, in the Premier League, when you get a few bad results, you don't get any time. So I've had a few conversations with my family. I was like, maybe I should look to move. Speaking with my agent at the time, let's see who's interested. So Man City and Tottenham knew that my contract was running down, and my agent and team had talks with them at the time, and it was something that was on the table, but it was impossible for me to get out. Like, it was either I go and sit, because I was still at a young age where I could still play youth team football.
Yeah.
So what I got told was, you either go and play in the youth team and sit there and rot, or you go on loan, or you just see your contract out and try and get into the first team. So after having that conversation, it kind of made me like not even want to be there anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So from there, we had another manager, and it kind of just kept going downhill to the point where I just ended up getting a pay up from Fulham, and I left. I left completely.
Yeah, something that I've noticed in your career, obviously you went down to Barnet, and Barnet have got a great track record of players, who have maybe had that opportunity to get more minutes under the belts. You think of your Yannick Bolassis and Albert Adomas, who have gone on to play in the Premier League.
Yeah.
I've always seen sort of in your career, you've been one of these players that's, highly rated by your managers, but you'd never seem to get that chance. And, you went from Barnet, and then you went on to a club I really want to talk about, which is Forest Green. And can you confirm the rumours are true? Did you have to go onto a vegan diet for that club?
All the food at the club was vegan, yeah. So any lunch they put on, food they put on was vegan. They didn't force you to go on a vegan diet because it was impossible to do that to a bunch of guys that love going Nando's. But
like we all do.
Yeah, but to be honest, the setup down there was great. I loved it down there, and the food was really good as well, considering it wasn't what you're normally used to.
Was it sort of a bombshell on you? Did you sort of think, when that opportunity came round, you sort of thought, vegan diet, obviously back in the 90s, football was just, you used to footballers having a training session, then going down the pub, and then this is like complete polar opposite. And you've got players, trying to better themselves and have a better lifestyle, really. I've noticed a lot of players saying that it did help. And do you sort of think that had much impact on your time there? Forest Green was probably one of your most successful times. Was the vegan life for you?
To be honest, when I was down there and I was on a vegan diet I was on it for about maybe 2.5 years, I didn't pick up any injuries at all. Like no muscle injuries, no no, the only big injury I had was probably like when I rolled my ankle. But I'm talking about like muscle injuries. Like recovery time was great. So on a personal note, I would do it again. Since I've come away from there, I've tried to stick to it. It's a bit tough because when you go into other clubs and they put lunch in front of you, it's not vegan. But for me personally, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the vegan lifestyle that's down there.
Before we get into the internationals, mate, I just wanted to go over. Obviously, you had what I would say was a successful stint at Forest Green Rovers. What happened towards the end of your time at Forest Green? Did you come to the end of your contract, or did you want to move on, or how did it work out?
So I had over the last 2 years at Forest Green, I had like interest from other clubs higher up that wanted to buy me and take me. Obviously, every footballer loves the club they're at, but they all have ambition when they're at a certain level to go and play higher. And managers should understand that because they would have the same. And then obviously chairmans, they always want their club to go higher. My relationship with the chairman down there was like probably the best I've had at any other club. Like he's a top guy. So he knew that from the minute I signed there. So I think it was coming to we got promoted into League Two, and then that was my last year when I had an option. So in that summer, there was a few interests from a few clubs in League One that was interested in me, and I was 50-50. Do I stay or do I go? Because I didn't know what we would do in League Two, and if I decide to stay and we end up not staying up or whatever happens, I might have missed that boat. So I just said that I might be interested to go and put it forward to the club. The chairman was like, he did think about it because he was like, he's in the last year of his contract. We could make some money on him before he goes. He's been a good servant to the club. So we'll think about it. So I was like, okay. So I went to start the season, started a few games at the beginning of the season, and then I was just on the bench, not getting a game. And then I got left out the squad completely, to the point where no matter what I was doing in training, I just weren't being given a chance, like, at all. So then I was just training. I was just becoming a training player. I said, can I go on loan? Had a few loan offers from in the same league and in League One, because my old manager, Adi Pennick, was at Gillingham at the time. So he asked if I can come on loan to Gillingham, and the manager at Forest Green, which was Mark Cooper at the time, was like, no, you're not going. That was it. Like, you're not going there. So I was like, all right. So I was training. I'm like getting to the point where I'm training better than players are playing and training.
Why did he turn around and deny you that move?
He just didn't want me at the time to go higher, because it would look silly from you're not playing a player, but then all of a sudden he's getting a loan move to the league higher. Like, fans wouldn't understand that. They would be like, why are you not playing him here?
But anyone who's followed your career would have known at that point in your career you were better than League Two, and you could have gone further.
But I don't know. I still don't know the reason why. Like, there was never a reason why. When I asked the question, like, why am I not in the team? He couldn't really give me a reason why. Obviously, every manager's different, and as I've got older, obviously managers have favourites and etc. But if the team's not playing well, you're not getting results, and you're losing, and like the fans, when I'm not even at the stadium, there's fans shouting like, where am I? And it gets to a point where surely you got to like shuffle things up. So then the chairman called a meeting with me and the manager and my agent, because the manager wasn't telling the chairman the full truth. So we was all at a table and said, like, look, what's happening here? So I've just blurred out. I was like, look, this is what's happening. Do you know anything about it? And he didn't know everything about it. So then I've kind of made the manager put him in a shit position. And then, but that's what should have happened anyway. So the chairman knows everything. So after that, I got put back in the team. I think I scored, when I got back in the team, I played against Coventry, and then we won 1-0. I scored the goal, and that was the first like away win for Forest Green in League Two ever, like, recorded, blah, blah. from there, I was back in the team. I was playing. We was doing well. I was happy. And then it got to January transfer window again. I knew I had 6 months on my deal. I knew this manager wasn't really my cup of tea, or I wasn't his cup of tea. So in the back of my head, I'm thinking maybe I need to like sort myself out now and look for another club, because I don't want to be stuck at the end of the season. So my agents had conversations with the manager and with the chairman, and then all of a sudden again, I'm back on the bench, just like that, on the bench. Like, I'm asking the questions, why am I playing? Like, so just getting frustrated. My mates are in the team saying, like, Key, like, we know you should be playing, but there's not much we can say because we don't want to be put in your position now, just for like backing you up. And I can understand that. So then it was getting to the last 3 months of the season, and I was thinking, I haven't played any football. It's going to get to the end of the season. I'm not going to have a club. And then clubs are going to be like, what have you done for the last 6 months? So I'd be like in a little bit of a shit streak. So I had made the decision to go on loan to the National League. Not something I wanted to do because I played there 2 years before that. And I know I could play in that easily, but it was a decision for me just to go and play some football somewhere. I didn't really care where I went. I just wanted to play football. It got to that point where I just wanted to just play football. I think there was 10 games left. I remember just getting a phone call in the morning from the club, and it's like, look, Dover want you to go on loan. I was like, yeah, cool, look, I'll do it. I'll go and play 10 games. I'll go and help them out, see if I can get them into the playoffs. So I remember driving to the training ground. I remember signing the loan sheet, and then like 5 minutes later, Macclesfield called me and was like, we want you on loan. And obviously they was top of the league. So I was like, oh shit, fucked up here. Like, I should have gone Macclesfield because I could have won the league again. But I went to Dover. I think it was like 10 games left or 9 games left. I think I ended up playing like 6 or 7 of the games. I scored like 5 or 6. So for me, that was a good thing, knowing that I've gone somewhere without playing a lot of football and I've still done well for myself, maybe putting me in good stead going into next season, if that's getting a league club or maybe getting like a top team in the National League.
Yeah.
And then from there, ended the season, I went back into Forest Green. And the chairman would always say to me now, even like from now, like, we would always have you back at the club. Like, we would have you back here in a heartbeat because the fans love you, everyone loves you. It's just if things were different. And I know what he means like about that. So that's just like that situation there. But from there, I had a few meetings over the summer with clubs abroad and in the UK. And I was going to sign for Swindon in the summer, in like late July, I was going to sign for Swindon. But they had an issue like getting players out because Phil Brown just signed there. So he was like, just give me a bit of time. And it got to the point where I was like, I can't really wait any longer. So I ended up signing at Newport. That was the club that was there at the time. So I signed at Newport, but probably one of the worst decisions I ever made. Probably the worst decisions I ever made. But that's football, and you live and you learn. But yeah, so, that was the last year.
So in that year, obviously you signed for Newport. Was that simultaneous with the FA Cup run they had? Was that the same year?
Yeah, that was the same year. Yeah.
So what happened there then, mate? Just give us a quick lowdown on what happened there.
So I started pre-season. We started pre-season, was training. I was kind of playing a lot of catch-up because of didn't play a lot of football before. So I've gone into this pre-season behind from the boys that I've played and finished the season strong. So I was just playing catch-up. So I was training. I was training hard, working hard. My performances were decent. Obviously, I expected a bit more. And then I picked up an injury. I pulled my thigh. And then I thought maybe this is just like a grade 1, grade 2. I'll be out for like maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I ended up out until January. So I was like 5 months out, 6 months out with my thigh. So I was trying to push it back in that time frame and trying to come back thinking it was fine. I remember playing a few games. It was fine. Felt a bit niggly after games. Got to a point where I was like, this feels great now. I think it was an FA Cup game we played against Met Police around December time, January. So I was fully fit. I've come on for the last 15 minutes just to get some minutes of me because I haven't played in a long time. Gone past the player, taken a shot, and I pulled my quad again. So from that point on, I was like, this is just not happening for me. Like, I didn't know what to do. I was getting treatment from loads of different places. Nothing was working. The manager was good with me. He was good with me, but he thought, like, what's wrong with you? Like, you keep getting injured. And I was like, I've never been injured before. If we look at the last 3 seasons, I've never had a muscle injury in my life. So it was all new to me, like recovering and all that kind of stuff. So it was tough. Mentally, it was tough.
So is it fair to say you went from spending the majority of time not involved in the first team, to then being involved, but then injuries just took it away from you?
Yeah, I think like the last year and a bit, injuries killed me a lot. Especially with that last injury, I just couldn't. Everything I'd done to try and come back from it just kept coming back. And you can see that, and there's a lot of players around the world, even at the biggest level, like when they get an injury, that's there for a while. Especially because they're in the first team, you see their form just dip. They just dip. Everything just goes downhill for a while until they build up that self-esteem and that confidence, and then they get going again. Yeah.
So simultaneously with, over the last year or so, you've played a hatful of games for Guyana. Obviously, international football is obviously a different step in terms of what you'd say for players that find themselves in the lower leagues. You play with your brother, obviously. Matt Briggs has obviously played as well. Who else? Neil Dans is in that squad. Just tell us about your time in international football before I hand you back to Tux in a minute. Just tell us what it's like to play at that level.
It was something new for me. I didn't know what to expect. Obviously, I knew the standard that I was going into with the few players that were playing in the UK, like Danzy, Briggsy, and obviously my older brother and a few younger boys that were playing in the UK. But for like the local players based in the country, I didn't know what to expect at all. I think the first time I went over there would be March. We played against Belize. And that was the game we needed to win to qualify for the Gold Cup. So we was over there for 2 weeks before that. And I remember training, and I was like, there was like 6 of us, and we was like, we don't think we could do it by ourselves. But what we've got here, we need to work on it a lot for them to be at any level near us to understand even just the basics of football to win a game. But we had a great coach. We had that Michael Johnson and his staff from the UK that worked at Derby. It was at Derby. Now he's working in the FA. And they worked a lot. They worked really hard with like the whole team. And going into the first game, it was like I've played in the England youth setup, but playing in this national team football is completely different. It's like, it's slow, it's boring, and you think you're going to win the games like just like that. And I remember starting the game, and we was nearly 1-0 down, thinking, shit, like we might not even qualify for the Gold Cup. So it's a different experience, a really different experience. But I'm glad I've done it. I wish I'd done it earlier in my career, but I'm glad I've done it now. And I enjoy playing for them, playing for the country every time I'm called up.
Obviously, your last English club, I believe, was Newport County, which you've obviously touched upon there. But it kind of brings us up to where you are now, really, with the last season that's just gone. So, playing your trade in the USL Championship, which is obviously the league below the MLS. So, which, from an American point of view, being predominantly based here, what was the thing for you to go over to America and play for a team such as Memphis 901 and, obviously take that next step in your career? Obviously just being used to obviously playing, coming from the likes of Arsenal and Fulham and things like that. I mean, what made you want to go there?
I think it was not playing a lot of football at Newport, going into the new year thinking, do I want to be a bench player, just a training player, or should I just take my career and see what happens and just take a gamble and try something different. Obviously, playing in the Gold Cup, we was playing in America at the time. So I got to see a lot of things of how things are run over here, training grounds, facilities, spoke to quite a few like coaches, and the stuff I heard I liked at the time. It got to about after Christmas time, and Tim Howard called me because we got a few mutual friends through like Giles Barnes, he came to Fulham at one point, Eddie Johnson that was at Fulham, and Clint Dempsey at Fulham. We still like kind of speak every now and then. So he called me and he just asked me like, what am I doing? What do I want to do? What's my plans? He was like, he's got a club over here now. He's just retired and he wants to try and take it to the next level. He wants to bring in a lot of good players from the UK and a good American-based players and try and take it into the MLS over the next 2 to 3 years. He sent me a plan and an outline of the club, and he said, have a look, think about it, and then get back to me. He was like, there's no rush, it's your decision. So after speaking like with my family, a few friends, like close friends, and looking into the club, I didn't really know much about it because it's only been the club's only been here for like one season. So it was a big gamble, especially going from England, just jumping straight to the UK. I mean, England jumping to the US.
So is this a long-term situation for you then? Is it you're currently still there, aren't you? Is that right?
Yeah, so I'm still here now. I signed a 2-year deal out here. Yeah. Now, obviously, we managed to get one game in because the season started in March. Yeah. So we played one game, and then the week after we went into lockdown. Yeah. So I've been out here. We've just been training, trying to keep fit every now and then. This week we've gone into individual training, so 4 people on the pitch on the stadium, and then we're waiting until the end of this month to find out if we're gonna have a season or not. I think they're planning to maybe go to Florida with loads of different local teams and do like a World Cup style, and then finish the season like that. So we're just waiting to find out what happens. But my experience over here so far has been really good. Yeah, really good.
So despite the fact you've only played one game, like I say, is it something that is potentially something that's going to be a long-term sort of thing, whether you're still there at that team? I mean, in terms of staying in America or, playing abroad, is that something that interests you? Or, you've obviously spoke about, a love affair with Forest Green Rovers. So is there maybe a chance of going back there, or maybe going back into the UK leagues and, working yourself up through there? What's your options?
Since the lockdowns happened, I thought about, what do I want to do? Obviously, it's because I'm not playing football. I've got a lot of time, and I'm like, do I want to, when all this is finished, do I want to carry on playing over here for a few more years, or do I want to come back to England and obviously play over there? I thought about it. Forest Green, if I did come back, probably be a club that I would probably want to go back to, just because of how they treated me and how much I loved the club. I've had a few options already, obviously, since everything that's happened back in the UK, of like clubs calling and asking questions and stuff like that to my agent. But I don't know, the way things are now, I think if I could end up playing a few games over here and maybe enjoying half a season or finishing it and then seeing where that leads to, I know I can always come back home and to the UK and play, but I would love to see like where maybe after a season what could happen over here.
Yeah, definitely. So with your motivations within football, there's some players that have, not just Arsenal or Fulham academies, but they come through the ranks and obviously still playing now, and it's not quite what it was in probably like the 90s era or the early noughties. So as a player now, what's your motivation to obviously continue your career? Obviously you love playing football, but is it just a love of football, or is it anything more?
For me, it was always just waking up and loving football and playing football, going outside, going to a cage or power league and just playing with my friends. That was always my mindset, even in the youth team when I was at Fulham, breaking into the first team. I always had ambition to think like, I'm good enough to play in the first team. Even when I was like 17, I was like, I know I could play in this first team, I just need the chance. I think now, as I've got older, you think about things a bit different, but I still want, if I did come back to the UK, I'm in the back of my mind, I'm still thinking, what's the next step if I go to League 2 or League 1? I want to get to the Championship.
Yeah.
That's my mindset. And I would always be like working hard to get to that step or get to that level.
Have you got into your country music over there in Memphis? Is that a career path you've sort of thought about taking down, you know, Old Town Road?
Yeah,
sort of
I think I've heard enough of it where to the point where I just want to go back home and listen to Kiss FM or something.
Brilliant. Lovely job. Look, there's always one question we ask everyone that comes on the show, okay?
Yeah.
And you may have heard it at the start, right? We're trying to get this player on. Dele Adebola. Do you know Dele Adebola?
The name sounds familiar. Who does he play for?
Oh, my God.
He's
It's played
retired
for
now.
everyone.
Before your time, Keanu, I reckon, mate.
Mate, he's
Dele
an absolute legend.
Dele Adebola.
Dele Adebola, he had a good career. He played for a number of different clubs, Coventry, Bristol City. You know, he's just one of those journeyman striker that just ended up at everywhere, but we just can't seem to find him or locate him, mate.
Is he still playing now?
No, he's well gone, I think. But we're just trying.
I'll ask a few mates because I'm sure that name come up in in a group chat the other day that we were talking. So
Of course, he's such an iconic player.
Look, thanks for coming on. We didn't know. Obviously, Mark's Tux is on recruitment, and he said earlier, "So, oh yeah, I've got Keanu coming on at 7 tonight." I was like, "You do realise he's in America, mate?" And it's like, "Oh shit." I told him 7 o'clock. And we were thinking he was going to come on a bit later.
I've still got the whole day, and it's only 2 o'clock here.
Exactly. It's been a good day for us anyway, mate. So, yeah, look, take care, and thanks for coming on, mate, and I hope it goes all the best, all right?
Thank you. No, anytime. I really appreciate it.
Cheers, Keanu. Top man.
Cheers, guys. Nice one. Thank you.